All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story I want to talk about the winner of the Classic Physique category at this 2022 Vancouver Pro that happened yesterday. Chen Kang, probably better known as Branch Chen 2015 on Instagram. So the last time that we saw him at the Olympia was 2019, pre-pandemic, where he took a top 6 spot, placing 5th at that 2019 Mr. Olympia. So that was 3 years ago. Now in 2022, he got his visa to go compete in Vancouver. He won that show, and he's now going to the Olympia again in 2022. So we haven't seen him back, and again, that probably could be due to the virus, and that could have restricted his travel from getting back to the Olympia, restricted his travel from competing. But this guy really, I think, is one of the top physiques in Classic right now. If you look at he's got crazy proportions, but as far as his legs go, he's got some of the best legs, quads specifically, in the Classic Physique category today. And I think the reason why that enhances his physique so much or makes him look so much more classic is because his upper body, he's already got a really crazy V-taper. His front double bicep is insane. And he's got this crazy V-taper effect with that. But I think because his legs are so big, you go down from this, these wide shoulders, the wide front double bicep down to the small waist. Then you come back out to these pretty massive quads. For a classic guy, he's got pretty big legs. And it just makes that illusion of the small waist look even more incredible. He's really good. His posing routine was beautiful. And this is just yet another guy that makes me really excited for this year's Classic Physique Olympia. We got so many guys that are just new to the scene. They're so good, these up-and-coming stars. Guys like Urs Kausinski, guys like Ramon Dino that are really coming up in the ranks. And then you've got guys like this, Branch Chen, Chen Kang, whatever you want to call him. I think he's a serious top 6 contender again this year, if not improving upon his 5th place placing in 2019, because he certainly looks like he's gotten better since the last time we saw him. I think the caliber of this year's Classic Physique Olympia is going to blow people away. I think that division, over the years has grown like crazy. The popularity has grown. The quality of competitors has grown. And I think this year, there's a lot of talk about how many names there are qualified for Classic Physique. There's like 50 guys. There's a crap load of guys qualified for the Olympia. But I think as a division, Classic Physique has never been more competitive than it is now. I mean, this guy looks insane. And there's other guys that look there's probably 10 other guys that look just as insane as he does. It's going to be a really good battle at the Olympia. And that's the thing that I like about Classic is there's so many different physiques to choose from, and they all represent and embody the essence of what Classic Physique is in different ways. You've got taller guys like Chris Bumstead and Logan Franklin that have more of like an Arnold Schwarzenegger-esque appeal. Then you look at a guy like Chen Kang, and you kind of think more of like a Franco Columbo. I think Tom Platz would be a little bit of an extreme example, but like a Danny Padilla, Franco Columbo, Tom Platz, maybe a shorter guy. You think of like this dense muscle, big legs. But I could not be more happy to see him qualified for the Olympia, and I'm expecting big things from him at the Olympia in December. Now, next up in the news, it was just announced 2 days ago by Phil and the Olympia that Phil Heath will be doing the commentary for this year's 2022 Mr. Olympia. Now, I think this is newsworthy for a number of reasons. I think number one, the obvious thing here is that it confirms the fact that Phil will not be competing. Obviously, if he's doing the commentary on the competitors, he himself will not be in the show. So I think that confirms that. And I guess the other piece of that first part is that maybe that fuels the speculation that if he is not retired and he's not done competing, that maybe it's not going to be the Olympia that he does as his last show. And again, that Athleticon show, the Icon World Classic, whatever it is The Rock ends up doing, if they're able to pull it off in 2023, I see that as something Phil might do. I still see the Arnold Classic 2023 as a possibility for Phil. A title that he never won was the Arnold Classic Ohio. But the second part of that is Phil doing the commentary. That in and of itself, I think, is a pretty newsworthy story because there's a lot of guys they could have chose from. They've done a lot of guys that are former competitors in the past, but Phil Heath has never really fully stepped into this role as a bodybuilding commentator. He's done a little bit here and there. I think it was the Chicago Pro. Maybe there was one show where he did a little bit of commentary for. Was it Chicago or was it the Boston Pro? And he had really good insights into bodybuilding. And to some of the conversations that I've had with Phil privately, he's always had very good insights into bodybuilding when it comes to talking about certain shows, certain placings, certain competitors. Phil's very knowledgeable, and the fact that he's been there, done that, won 7 Olympia titles also, doesn't hurt his credibility as an analyst. So I think Phil is a really, really good pick for this job. And he's an interesting character himself. I mean, he's been controversial. He's been the villain. And I think now, more people are coming over to maybe they want to see him come back. They want to see him compete again. But the thing that I'm interested to see is the situation like that me and Phil had, when me and Phil had our beef or whatever you want to call it, it was really rooted in him thinking I was too critical of his physique. And that's going to be the interesting thing, I think, about watching Phil do the commentary for this show, is it's very hard to give an opinion or commentate on a bodybuilding show without directly or indirectly criticizing someone's physique, because that is what the judging of the show is. This guy looks better than this guy, and here's why. This guy is off compared to this guy, and here's why. This guy beats this guy, and here's why. As a commentator, Phil's going to have to step into that role, and he's going to kind of see that it's difficult to talk about a bodybuilding show without hurting someone's feelings or criticizing someone. So that's what I'm going to be interested to see, is Phil's approach to doing commentary, to see how different it might be from mine or someone else that does bodybuilding commentary, coming from the standpoint of a former competitor. I'm kind of curious to see his take on it, because bodybuilding is so subjective, meaning opinion-based, that there's always someone that is not going to like what you have to say. And I've even run into this. It'll be even a situation where I could say a competition is close. So if you got a guy in first and a guy in second, and it looks like they're head-to-head at prejudging, if I say it looked close, then the guy that won might be offended that I even thought that the other guy was close to him. He's like, what do you mean he was close? I was way ahead of that guy. So almost anything can be taken as a criticism in bodybuilding. So very curious to see Phil's approach to this, and I think he is a really good pick for this job. And I'd like to see him do the same thing at the Arnold Classic. Now, next up in the news, more updates from Keone Pearson as he prepares to take the stage in Tampa. This was 3 weeks out. This was posted a couple days ago by his coach, Patrick Tour, at 208.3 pounds, nicely filling out that 212 weight cap. Keone, of course, is looking to win this show and qualify for the Olympia again for a third time in 212. This will be his fourth time at the Olympia, Classic Physique. Then, his fourth time qualified for the Olympia. Classic Physique once, 212 twice. And then if he wins this one, that's 4 Olympia qualifications, which is pretty impressive at his age. Looking at these updates, he looks really good. Really good separation in the legs, vascularity in the legs. We already talked about how his glutes already have some striations. Keone, I think, is, like I said, he's just one of the most insane, structurally gifted athletes that I think bodybuilding has right now. This particular picture caught my eye, the vacuum pose, the abs and thighs with a vacuum. Look at how crazy his taper is. The size of his upper body, the size of his arms, crazy small waist, and I think that also helps make his legs look a little bit bigger. That's one of the things I thought he needed to work on was his legs, but they look great here. Crazy separation in the quads. And as far as I know, the two main guys that I think are going to give him trouble here are Kareth Bajo, and Cody Drobot is actually doing this show. I'm excited to see him compete again. Then Keone also posted a handful of other updates here, just kind of showing off where he's at. And Keone is just, he's a genetic marvel, man. And I think with a little more size in the lower body, this is kind of, it's like the exact same thing as Derek Lunsford. Derek had a crazy back, though, a lot crazier back than Keone. But Derek kind of had the same thing. He was very aesthetic for a 212 guy. And once he brought up his legs to be pretty impressive, that's when he was unstoppable. Legs and conditioning, the same two things that I think is what Keone is facing. So when I look at Keone, I look at his structure, I look at the aesthetic appeal of his physique, I think of Derek, and I think the same thing that Derek did, if Keone can do that, that's the call out I want to see, is like a 110% version of Keone versus Derek, top 2 call out at the 212 Olympia. But honestly, I have a strong feeling that Derek is going to go to Open, and there's going to be a new 212 champion this year, which makes it even more exciting, the possibility of Keone being in that conversation. So as always, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. That is going to wrap it up for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you give it a thumbs up and leave a like if you did enjoy it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet already. Click that bell notification icon if you have not clicked it. And as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.